The emergency broadcast tore through every communication channel in the Galactic Council chambers. Leto's voice cracked with desperation as his image flickered across the massive view screen, his slender frame trembling. Behind him, fires burned across what had once been a peaceful city. The Talari diplomat's large eyes reflected the orange glow of destruction. Please, anyone who can hear this message, our world of Bren is under attack. The Ravagers came without warning. They destroy everything beautiful we have created. Our people are being taken as slaves. Our children hide in ruins. We have no weapons, no soldiers, no way to fight back. The Galactic Council promised protection to all peaceful species. We need that protection now, please, we are dying. The transmission ended abruptly with the sound of an explosion. The council chamber fell silent. 300 representatives from across known space sat in their designated sections, but nobody moved. High Chancellor Morath, a being whose species had held leadership for 2 centuries, folded his 6 arms slowly. The situation is tragic, Morath said, his translator rendering his words into every language simultaneously. However, mobilization of council forces requires proper procedures. We must form committees, assess the military requirements, establish supply chains, and coordinate between member fleets. The earliest projection for deployment would be 4 months. A murmur ran through the chamber. 4 months. Everyone knew what that meant. The Talari would be gone long before help arrived. The Ravagers worked quickly. They always did, 4 months. A voice called out. You might as well tell them to surrender now and save themselves the suffering. Morath's face remained expressionless. If any individual species wishes to respond independently, they are free to do so. The Council will not stop unilateral action, but neither will we support it with resources or backup. Silence again. Helping the Talari meant sending ships and soldiers into danger without support. It meant risking lives for a species most of the galaxy barely knew. Every representative did the same mental calculation and reached the same conclusion. Too risky, too expensive, too complicated. Owen Harris sat in the human section, a small area near the back that humanity had occupied for only 3 years. His jaw tightened as he watched species after species look away from Leto's empty seat. He had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat. He knew what 4 months meant to people under siege. It meant death. He activated his communicator, bypassing diplomatic channels entirely and connecting directly to Earth's military command. The signal took 8 seconds to reach home, another 8 for the reply. Admiral Park here. I saw the broadcast, Ambassador. What are you thinking? Owen glanced around the chamber. I am thinking that 300 species just decided that following procedure is more important than saving lives. I am thinking that we are the only ones asking if we can help instead of why we should not. Grace Park's voice carried the weight of someone who had made difficult decisions before. The Ravagers outnumber anything we can field quickly. Intelligence suggests they have at least 400 ships in that sector. Can we do it? A pause. You are asking if we can fight an enemy twice our size, halfway across known space with no support from anyone? Yes, another pause, longer this time. Owen heard voices in the background. Rapid discussions happening at Earth's fleet headquarters. Then Grace spoke again, her tone shifting from cautious to determined. Give me 48 hours to assemble the fleet. We will bring everything that can fly and fight. The 3rd, 7th, and 9th battle groups, Marine Expeditionary Forces, support vessels. 150 ships total. It will strip our defensive posture thin, but we can do it. Owen felt something loosen in his chest. Thank you, Admiral. Do not thank me yet, Ambassador. Sell this to the government. We need authorization before I can move a single vessel outside Sol system. Owen closed the channel and stood. Around him, the Council continued debating procedures and timelines and political complications. He walked to the central platform, a space typically reserved for the High Chancellor and senior species representatives. His footsteps echoed in the vast chamber. Ambassador Harris, Morath said, his tone carrying disapproval. You have not been recognized to speak. Then recognize me now. Owen looked up at the towering alien. Humanity will respond to the Talari distress call. We will deploy within 48 hours. The chamber erupted. 300 species began talking at once. Morath raised one hand for silence. Ambassador, your species numbers only 12 billion. You have been part of this council for merely 3 years. The Ravagers are a threat that has terrorized civilizations for centuries. You cannot possibly succeed against them. Maybe not, Owen said, but we are going to try. Because someone has to. A representative from the Quellan Collective, a species known for military strength, spoke up. Your fleet numbers barely 200 ships. The Ravagers have double that in the Bren sector alone. This is suicide. Owen met the representative's gaze. My species evolved on a planet where everything tried to kill us. Predators, diseases, weather, even the plants. We survived because we learned one simple truth. When something threatens you, you do not wait for permission to fight back. You act. This is madness, another voice called out. You will be destroyed, and for what? A species you have never even met. For the right reason, Owen said simply. Because they asked for help and we can give it. He turned and walked back to his seat. His communicator lit up with an incoming message. Earth's government had given authorization. Grace Park was already mobilizing the fleet. 20 hours later, the human armada began departing from Earth. Ships that had been patrolling distant sectors burned their engines hard to reach the rally point. Cargo vessels loaded supplies at speeds that stressed their loading systems. Marines boarded transports, their gear already packed, their faces set with determination. In the council chambers, representatives gathered around displays showing the human fleet assembling. The speed of it shocked them. Most species needed months to organize such a deployment. Humanity managed it in 2 days. Morith watched the displays in silence. Finally, he spoke to his aide. Send a monitoring probe to Bren. I want to see what happens when Deathworlders go to war. Leto, still on Bren, received a message through the failing communication network. It was simple and direct. Hold on. We are coming. Humanity. For the first time since the Ravagers arrived, Leto allowed himself to hope. The fleet moved through space like a school of metallic fish, each vessel maintaining precise formation as they traveled faster than light toward a world most of them had never heard of a week ago. Inside the flagship Indomitable, life continued with organized chaos that somehow made sense. Rita Singh stood in the intelligence center, surrounded by holographic displays showing everything known about the Ravagers. The information was not encouraging. 500 data points, 300 confirmed attacks, 0 recorded defeats. The Ravagers had terrorized the galaxy for so long that most species simply avoided the regions where they operated. They hit fast and brutal, Rita said to the officers gathered around her briefing table. Standard pattern is orbital bombardment of defensive positions, followed by ground forces securing population centers. They take everything valuable and leave nothing useful behind. Average operation length is 3 weeks from arrival to departure. David Lee, commander of the Marine Forces, studied the tactical breakdowns. His dark eyes moved across the data with practiced efficiency. What do we know about their combat doctrine? Overwhelming force. They rely on numbers and firepower to break resistance quickly. Host species surrender within days. Rita pulled up footage from previous Ravager attacks. The images showed cities burning, populations being herded into transport ships, orbital bombardments turning military installations into craters. They have never faced sustained resistance because nobody has ever been able to match their numbers. Until now, David said quietly. Rita nodded. Until now. But we need to be clear about what we are facing. Current estimates put their force at Bren at 420 ships. We have 150. They have 40,000 ground troops. We have 12,000 Marines. On paper, we lose. On paper, Grace Park said, entering the room. The Ravagers have never fought humans. Paper does not account for variables like determination, training, and the simple fact that we are very, very angry about what they are doing to those people. The room straightened slightly at her presence. Grace had that effect. She did not demand respect through authority alone. She earned it through the calm certainty in her voice. How long until we reach Bren? She asked. 17 days at current speed, Rita answered. We are pushing the FTL drives harder than recommended, but the engineering team say they can maintain it. Grace nodded. 17 days to turn this fleet into something the Ravagers have never encountered. David, I want your Marines training every waking hour. Close quarters combat, boarding actions, urban warfare, everything. Already started, David confirmed. We are running simulations based on Ravager ship layouts. My teams are memorizing every corridor, every potential choke point. Good. Grace turned to Rita. I need you to build me a complete tactical picture. Find their weaknesses. Every fleet has them. Rita highlighted several data clusters. I have been analyzing their formation patterns. They favor numerical superiority over tactical flexibility. They spread their forces wide to intimidate. but it leaves gaps in their defensive coverage. If we can exploit those gaps, then we turn their numbers against them, Grace finished. Concentrate our forces, hit hard and fast, break their formation before they can respond effectively. The briefing continued for another hour, plans forming and reforming as new data arrived. Throughout the ship, similar scenes played out. Engineers worked on optimizing weapon systems. Medical teams prepared for casualties. Supply officers calculated ammunition requirements and rationing schedules. Leto moved through it all like a ghost, watching these humans prepare for a battle they had chosen to fight. He had been given quarters near the command deck, treated with courtesy and respect that surprised him. The humans asked him questions about his people, about Bren, about Talari culture. They wanted to know what they were fighting for, not just against. He found David in the Marine training bay watching his soldiers run through simulated shipboarding scenarios. The humans moved with frightening efficiency, their powered armor turning them into walking tanks that cleared rooms in seconds. "Your people are impressive," Leto said softly. David glanced at him. "Your people are artists, scientists, philosophers. You build things that last forever. We build things that survive the day. Different skills for different worlds. Why are you helping us? Your ambassador said it was the right thing to do. But you are risking everything. Many of you will die." David was quiet for a moment, watching his Marines train. "When I was young, my home city flooded. The seawalls broke during a storm and water rushed through the streets. I was trapped on a roof with my sister, water rising, no way down. We thought we were dead." He paused, the memory clearly painful. Then boats came. Rescue teams from other cities, other countries, places we had never been to, filled with people we had never met. They came through the storm because people needed help. My sister and I got pulled into one of those boats by a man who spoke a language I did not understand, but I understood why he was there. Leto's large eyes reflected understanding. "And now you are the boat." "Now we are the boat," David agreed. "The galaxy waited for someone else to help you. We decided that someone would be us." Training intensified as days passed. The fleet ran combat drills constantly, ships moving in coordinated patterns that would have seemed impossible to species who approached warfare cautiously. Human pilots pushed their fighters through maneuvers that exploited the high gravity tolerance their evolution had gifted them. G-forces that would kill or cripple most species merely made humans grunt with effort. Grace watched it all from the command deck, feeling pride and worry in equal measure. She knew what they were sailing toward. She had fought before, lost people before, made decisions that haunted her sleep, but those fights had been for clear survival, for defense of Earth itself. This was different. This was choosing to stand in harm's way for strangers. She activated her fleet-wide communication channel. Every screen on every ship showed her face. "By now you all know what we are facing at Bren. The numbers are not in our favor. The Ravagers are experienced, brutal, and confident. They expect us to see their strength and turn away. They expect us to be reasonable, to calculate the odds, to choose safety over risk." She leaned forward slightly. "They do not know us very well. We come from a world that tried to kill us with weather, predators, disease, and 1,000 other dangers. We survived because we refused to quit. We thrived because we learned to stand together. And we became who we are because we decided that some things are worth fighting for, even when the odds are bad." Her voice hardened. "The Talari are worth fighting for. Every innocent person suffering under Ravager occupation is worth fighting for. And in 17 days we are going to show the galaxy that when humans decide to fight, we do not do it halfway. We fight to win, and we do not abandon those who need us." The transmission ended. Across the fleet, 12,000 Marines checked their weapons. Fighter pilots ran pre-flight sequences one more time. Engineers verified every system. Medical teams organized their supplies, and in his quarters, Leto composed a message to his people on Bren. The transmission would take days to reach them, but he needed to send it. "Hold on. The humans are coming, and I have seen how they prepare for war. There is hope." 3 days from Bren, Rita made a discovery. She called Grace to the intelligence center immediately. "I found something. The Ravager fleet is anchored by 6 command carriers. They coordinate the entire operation. Their communication network flows through those 6 ships." Rita highlighted the vessels on her display. "If we can disable or destroy them quickly, we can create chaos in their formation." Grace studied the positioning. "They will protect those carriers heavily." "Yes," Rita agreed. which means we will need to do something they do not expect. Something aggressive, something crazy, Grace smiled grimly. Good thing crazy is our specialty. The fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Bren system right on schedule. Sensors immediately lit up with contacts. 423 Ravager vessels in orbit around Bren. The planet itself showed scars from orbital bombardment. On the command deck of the Indomitable, Grace sat in her chair and watched the enemy fleet on the display. Somewhere in that formation was Warlord Grath, the Ravager commander. He would be receiving their arrival notification right now. Open a channel, Grace ordered. Let us introduce ourselves. Warlord Grath had conquered 47 worlds in his long career. He knew how these situations developed. A fleet would arrive, see his numbers, calculate their chances, and either flee or send diplomatic messages attempting to negotiate. Sometimes they fought briefly before surrendering. The pattern never changed. So when his communications officer reported 150 unknown vessels entering the system, he felt only mild curiosity. His display showed the newcomers taking up formation at the system's edge. Small fleet, unfamiliar design. Probably another council species who had not received the memo about Talari being a lost cause. Scan them, he ordered. Identify their origin. His tactical officer worked quickly, unable to identify ship classes from our database. Energy signatures are unusual. Very high output for vessels that size. Wait. Receiving their identification beacon now. A pause. They are human. Grath felt something he had not experienced in many years. Surprise. Everyone in the raiding business knew about humans. The Deathworlders. The species from the impossible planet who had somehow reached the stars despite evolving in conditions that should have killed them. The Ravagers specifically avoided human territory, not from fear exactly, but from the understanding that some prey was more trouble than it was worth. But this was not human territory. This was his operation, his conquest. And these humans had traveled across the galaxy to interfere. The communication came through. A human female appeared on his screen. Dark hair pulled back, uniform crisp, expression completely neutral. She spoke with the kind of calm that made Grath's instincts whisper warnings. Warlord Grath. I am Admiral Grace Park of the Human Defense Fleet. You have attacked a peaceful species without provocation. You have 45 seconds to begin withdrawing your forces from Bren and releasing all prisoners. Failure to comply will result in your removal by force. Grath laughed. He could not help it. 45 seconds. This human was giving him 45 seconds to abandon an operation weeks in the making, surrender valuable prisoners, and run from a force 1/3 his size. Admiral Park, I have 400 ships. You have 150. Simple mathematics suggests you reconsider your position. Withdraw now and I will not pursue. Stay and I will add human ships to my collection. Grace's expression did not change. 45 seconds started when I began talking. You now have 11 seconds remaining. The communication ended. Grath stared at the blank screen for a moment, then began laughing again. These humans had spirit. It would be entertaining to crush it. All ships, combat formation. Prepare to engage. We will make this quick. His fleet began moving, spreading out in the intimidation pattern that had worked so many times before. 400 ships forming a wall of metal and weapons that should have made any sane commander retreat. The human fleet did not retreat. Instead, they did something that made Grath's tactical officer gasp. They charged. All 150 ships accelerated directly toward the Ravager formation at speeds that stressed their engines. Not a cautious advance, not a tactical approach. A full aggressive charge that closed the distance before Grath could process what he was seeing. All weapons fire, he commanded. The space between the fleets lit up with weapons fire. Missiles streaked across the void. Energy beams cut through darkness, and the humans flew through it all like it was a light rain. Their point defense systems worked with mechanical precision, intercepting missiles that should have hit. Their shields absorbed beam fire that should have crippled them. And when they entered effective firing range, they opened up with weapons that punched through Ravager shields like they were made of paper. David watched from the Marine ready room as the battle unfolded on the displays. He had seen combat before, but never anything like this. Human fighters weaved between Ravager capital ships, targeting weapon systems and engines with surgical precision. Destroyers worked in coordinated packs, concentrating fire on single targets until they broke apart. All Marine units, prepare for boarding action, his communicator announced. First wave launches in 2 minutes. His team stood and moved to the boarding craft. They had trained for this, practiced it hundreds of times in simulation, but simulation did not capture the sound of ship-to-ship weapons fire, or the way the deck shook when impacts hit nearby. Listen up, David said as they boarded the assault craft. We hit fast, we hit hard, and we watch each other's backs. The Ravagers think they are the predators in this fight. Let us remind them what real predators look like. The craft launched, accelerating toward a Ravager cruiser that had lost its main engines to fighter attack. 50 other boarding craft launched simultaneously, each carrying a team of Marines in powered armor. Rita watched from the intelligence center, tracking every element of the battle. The Ravagers were responding exactly as her analysis predicted. They relied on overwhelming numbers, spreading their fire across multiple targets instead of concentrating effectively. The humans exploited every gap in their formation, every moment of confusion. Command Carrier Alpha is taking heavy damage, she reported to Grace. Beta and Delta have moved to protect it. Gamma, Epsilon, and Omega are holding position near the planet. Good, Grace replied. Target Beta and Delta with bomber wings 3 and 7. Rita, find me Grath. I want to know which ship he is on. Rita's fingers flew across her console. Communication intercepts, command patterns, ship movements. Everything left traces if you knew where to look. Found him. He is on the flagship Devastator, holding position at the center of their formation. Grace studied the tactical display. The Ravagers had formed a defensive sphere around their command ships, exactly as Rita predicted they would. It made them feel secure. It also made them predictable. All ships execute pattern Delta 7, converge on the Devastator. Time to cut the head off this beast. The human fleet shifted like a living thing, ships that had been engaging across the battle space suddenly accelerating toward a single point. The Ravagers tried to respond, but their formation was already disrupted. Dozens of their ships were disabled or destroyed. Their communication network was fragmenting as command carriers fell. On the Devastator, Grath watched his perfect operation fall apart. 3 of his command carriers were gone. His formation had holes in it, and the humans just kept coming, absorbing damage that should have stopped them, pressing attacks that should have been suicidal. All ships fall back to defensive positions around the planet. We regroup and counterattack. But the humans did not give him time to regroup. Their fighters harassed any ship that tried to move. Their capital ships pounded his defensive positions. And then the boarding craft reached their targets. David's team cut through the Ravager cruiser's hull with plasma torches, armor protecting them from the explosive decompression. They moved through the breach into corridors designed for beings larger than humans. That size difference became an advantage. The Marines moved faster, fit into smaller spaces, attacked from unexpected angles. The Ravagers had weapons. They had numbers, but they did not have centuries of practice at the art of killing. Humans did. Every conflict in human history had taught them lessons about combat. Those lessons came due now. David's team cleared the cruiser in 20 minutes. 20 minutes of controlled violence that left the ship secure and ready for capture. Across the battlefield, 49 other boarding teams achieved similar results. 6 hours after the battle began, Grath faced reality. He had started with 423 ships. He now had 211, and that number dropped every minute. The humans had lost only 18 vessels, most of those to lucky shots in the initial exchange. His communication officer approached carefully. Warlord, the humans are hailing us again. Grace appeared on his screen once more. She looked exactly the same as before. Calm, professional, completely unbothered by the fact that she had just torn through twice her number without breaking stride. Warlord Grath, your fleet is broken. You have 2 options: surrender immediately and face trial for your crimes, or continue fighting and die in the next hour. Choose now. Grath had raided and terrorized for decades. He had built his reputation on being the predator that others feared. But sitting in his damaged flagship, watching human ships hunting down his fleet with methodical efficiency, he understood something terrible. He had never been the apex predator. He had just never encountered one until today. We surrender, he said quietly. Grace nodded. All Ravager ships will power down weapons and engines immediately. You will release all prisoners and stand by to be boarded. Any ship that attempts to flee will be destroyed. Any ship that fires a weapon will be destroyed. Any ship that harms a prisoner will be destroyed. Am I understood? Understood. The transmission ended. Across the Bren system, Ravager ships powered down. Human vessels moved among them like shepherds gathering the flock. On the Indomitable, Rita leaned back in her chair and let out a breath she had been holding for hours. We did it. Grace watched the tactical display as the last Ravager ship surrendered. No, we started it. Now we finish it. Get medical teams to Bren immediately. I want every prisoner located and freed. I want every wounded person treated. And I want David's Marines on that planet yesterday. David was already halfway there. The transport touched down in what had once been a city park. Now it was a landing zone carved from rubble and ash. David stepped out first, his armor's sensors scanning for threats. Behind him, 300 Marines deployed in practiced formation, securing the perimeter in seconds. Smoke still rose from buildings in the distance. The Ravagers had fortified positions throughout the city, and small groups still held out even after their fleet's surrender. Most were simply confused, cut off from command and unsure what to do. A few were defiant, choosing to fight rather than surrender. Those few learned quickly that fighting humans on the ground was even more futile than fighting them in space. David's team moved through the streets carefully. Rubble created choke points and hiding spots. Every corner could hide an ambush. But the Marines had trained for urban warfare in conditions far worse than this. Earth's cities had seen enough conflict to teach every lesson there was to learn. A Ravager patrol appeared at an intersection ahead. 6 soldiers, heavily armed, moving toward what looked like a Talari shelter. David's hand went up, stopping his team. He switched his communicator to external speakers. Ravager Patrol, this is Commander David Lee of the Human Defense Fleet. Your fleet has surrendered. Your war is over. Put down your weapons and you will be treated fairly under rules of war. The Ravagers stopped. They looked at each other, clearly uncertain. Their leader raised his weapon. We do not surrender to prey species. We are Ravagers. We take what we want, David sighed. Wrong answer. What happened next took 8 seconds. The Marines moved with coordinated precision that made it look choreographed. Flashbangs disoriented the Ravagers. Stun rounds dropped 4 of them immediately. The other 2 managed to fire their weapons, but human armor absorbed the impacts. Return fire put them down without killing them. Secure them and call for transport, David ordered. We have a schedule to keep. The schedule involved finding and liberating 40,000 Talari prisoners. Intelligence had located the main detention camps, but smaller groups were scattered throughout the city. Every building had to be checked. Every basement and shelter had to be searched. Nell huddled in the darkness with 15 other Talari. They had hidden when the Ravagers came, stuffing themselves into a storage basement beneath what had been a school. Food had run out 2 days ago. Water was nearly gone. The youngest children had stopped crying, too exhausted to make noise anymore. Then they heard footsteps above. Heavy ones. The kind that meant Ravagers were searching. Nell pulled the children closer, trying to keep them quiet. If the Ravagers found them, they would be taken to the camps or killed if they resisted. Everyone knew what happened in the camps. The door to the basement exploded inward, light flooding the darkness. Nell shielded the children with her body, expecting Ravager soldiers. Instead, armored figures climbed down, moving carefully. The armor was different from Ravager gear, sleeker, more sophisticated, and when one of them spoke, the voice was gentle despite coming through mechanical speakers. It is okay. You are safe now. We are humans. We came to help. Nell stared up at the armored figure. She had heard the transmission days ago, the message from humanity, but she had not dared believe help would actually come. Are you real? She asked in a whisper. The armored figure removed its helmet, revealing a human face. Dark skin, tired eyes, but a kind smile. We are real, and we are getting you out of here. David watched his team help the Talari from the basement. They were so thin, so scared. Some could barely walk. The humans picked up the ones who could not, carrying them with care that seemed impossible from soldiers who had just been in combat. Sir, we found the main detention camp, his communicator reported. It is bad. Really bad. David felt his jaw tighten. On my way. The camp had been built in what looked like a sports arena. The Ravagers had herded 40,000 Talari into a space designed for maybe 10,000. There was no proper sanitation, no medical care, minimal food and water. People were dying and the Ravagers had not cared. Human medical teams were already swarming the area by the time David arrived. Doctors moved through the crowds, treating the worst cases first. Soldiers distributed food and water, trying to maintain order as desperate people surged forward. Leto walked among his people, tears streaming down his face. He had seen them on view screens from the Indomitable, watched the camps from orbit. But being here, smelling the sickness and despair, seeing children too weak to stand, hit him differently. A human medic worked on a young Talari girl. Her breathing labored from an infection that should have been easily treated. The medic's hands moved with practiced skill, administering medicine, checking vitals, speaking softly to keep the girl calm. When the girl's breathing eased, the medic sat back and wiped her eyes. She was crying. Leto approached slowly. "You saved her life. Why do you cry?" The medic looked up at him. "Because she should never have been in this condition. Because I am looking at 40,000 people who suffered while the galaxy did nothing. Because it makes me angry and sad and I do not know how else to handle it. But you came," Leto said softly. "When no one else would, you came. We came too late for some." The medic gestured to a corner where bodies were being respectfully covered. "I keep thinking if we had been faster, if we had known sooner, maybe we could have saved them too." Leto understood then. The humans did not fight because it was easy or profitable. They fought because they genuinely cared about the suffering of strangers. Their strength came from compassion, not cruelty. In orbit, Grace accepted Grath's formal surrender aboard the Indomitable. The Ravager leader looked smaller somehow without his fleet and his power. Just an aging warrior who had finally met a force he could not overcome. "I do not understand," Grath said as human soldiers took him into custody. The council voted against intervention. "You are not obligated to help the Talari. Why throw away lives and resources for a species you barely know?" Grace looked at him for a long moment. "Because someone had to. Because it was right. And because we refuse to live in a galaxy where the strong can prey on the weak without consequence." "You are idealistic fools," Grath said. "The galaxy will use you up and throw you away." "Maybe," Grace acknowledged. "But at least we will know we tried." "Can you say the same about your life? When you look back on everything you did, will you be proud? Or will you just see a long list of people you hurt because you could?" Grath had no answer to that. The liberation took 3 days to complete. Every Talari was accounted for. Every Ravager soldier was captured. The humans worked with methodical efficiency, turning chaos into order. David found Nell in a temporary shelter, eating her first real meal in weeks. She looked up at him with those large Talari eyes that reflected so much emotion. "Are you leaving now?" she asked. "Now that we are saved?" David knelt down to her level. "We will stay until your people are safe. Until your cities can function again. Until you do not need us anymore." "What if I need you forever?" Nell asked quietly. "I have no family left. The Ravagers took them." David felt something crack inside his chest. He thought of his own sister, pulled from floodwaters years ago. He thought about all the children he had seen in the camps. He thought about the fact that he had spent so long as a soldier that he had never considered being anything else. "Then maybe we figure something out," he heard himself say. "If you want, if your people allow it, maybe you could come with us. See Earth. See what humans do when they are not fighting." Nell's expression brightened for the first time since he had met her. "I would like that." Owen stood before the Galactic Council again, this time via long-range transmission from Bren. His image appeared above the central platform, larger than life, impossible to ignore. 3 days ago, humanity arrived at Bren, he said. "We faced a Ravager fleet twice our size. We were told it was impossible. We were told we would fail. We were told to follow procedure and wait for council approval." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "We liberated Bren in 6 hours of combat. We freed 40,000 prisoners. We captured 400 enemy vessels and took into custody 6,000 Ravager soldiers. The Talari are safe. Their world is secure, and we did it because it was the right thing to do." Morath shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Ambassador, your success is commendable. But you took enormous risks, risks that could have resulted in disaster." "But they did not," Owen replied. "And do you know why? Because humanity refuses to accept that helping others is too risky, or too expensive, or too complicated. We saw people suffering and we acted. That is what strength is supposed to be for. Not conquest, not domination. Protection." A representative from a species humanity had never worked with before stood, Ambassador Harris, would humanity be willing to assist other species facing similar threats? Owen smiled. That depends. Is the galaxy willing to learn that Deathworlders do not bring death to those who seek peace? We extend our hand to friends and our sword to enemies. Choose which one you want to see. The council session ended with more questions than answers, but across the galaxy, species began re-evaluating their understanding of the humans from the impossible planet. On Bren, Rita compiled her final report. 12 ships lost. 3,400 humans dead, a price paid willingly for strangers. She sent the report to Grace and added a personal note. Worth it. Every loss, every risk, every second of doubt. Worth it to see the Talari free. Grace read the note and looked out at Bren below. Lights were coming back on in the cities. People were returning to their homes. Life was resuming. Yes, she said to the empty command deck. Worth it. Rain fell on the memorial field, soft and steady. 12 rows of markers stretched across what had been an empty plain 2 weeks ago. Each marker bore a name, a rank, and a simple phrase that applied to all of them. Died bringing hope to strangers. David stood at attention with Nell beside him. The young Talari wore a simple black dress, her way of honoring human customs she was learning to understand. Around them, thousands of humans and Talari gathered in silence as Grace spoke at the central monument. We came to Bren knowing the cost might be high, Grace said, her voice carrying across the field. 3,400 of our people paid that cost with their lives. They could have stayed home. They could have waited for someone else to act. But they chose to stand between evil and innocence, even though it meant they might not go home. She paused, looking at the markers. Some people will say they died for strangers. I say they died proving that there are no strangers in this galaxy. Only people who need help and people who can provide it. Our fallen understood that truth better than most. Leto stood among the Talari delegation, his own mourning robe soaked with rain he barely noticed. These humans had given everything for his people. How could such a debt ever be repaid? How could words express gratitude for sacrifice this profound? After the ceremony, David found himself approached by a Talari elder named Vren. The old being moved slowly, his body showing signs of the camp's brutality. Commander Lee, Vren said, I am told you have taken young Nell into your care. David nodded. With permission from your council, yes. She has no family left. I thought perhaps she could find a new one. Vren's expression was hard to read. You fight like predators. Your species evolved to hunt and kill, yet you show such gentleness to our young. I am trying to understand this contradiction. It is not a contradiction, David replied. We learned to fight because our world was harsh. But we also learned that strength means nothing if you do not use it to protect those who need protection. My people have a saying, the strong must stand for those who cannot stand for themselves. A noble philosophy, Vren acknowledged. I hope you can maintain it as you grow more powerful. David had no answer to that. He hoped the same thing. Rita worked in what had been a Talari University library. The Ravagers had looted most of the physical items, but digital archives remained. She sat with a team of Talari scholars, helping restore data that chronicled thousands of years of their culture. Here, a young scholar named Pren said excitedly, the poetry of the Third Age. I thought it was lost forever. Rita smiled as the scholar pulled up ancient texts. This was why they had fought. Not just to save lives, though that mattered most, but to preserve the things that made those lives worth living. Art, history, culture, all the intangible elements that defined a species. Your people value these things too? Pren asked. The arts and histories? Very much, Rita confirmed. We nearly lost much of our own heritage during what we call the Dark Centuries. Wars and disasters destroyed countless works of art, books, music. We learned that protecting culture is as important as protecting lives. Both are necessary for a species to truly thrive. Pren looked at her with newfound respect. The council told us humans were dangerous, violent, to be feared. We are those things when necessary, Rita said honestly. But danger and violence are tools, not identities. We choose when and how to use them. Right now, we choose to help you rebuild. In the temporary government center, Owen dealt with the political aftermath of their intervention. Messages flooded in from across the galaxy. Some praised humanity's actions. Others worried about the precedent it set. A few threatened diplomatic consequences for acting without council approval. He ignored most of them and focused on the ones that mattered. 3 separate species had sent quiet requests for assistance with their own problems. Pirates in one system, corporate exploitation in another, a territorial dispute turning violent in a third. Grace reviewed the requests with him over a secured channel. We cannot be everywhere at once, Owen. We barely have enough ships to maintain our own defense now. I know, Owen admitted. But we opened this door. People are watching to see if our words match our actions. If we help the Talari but ignore everyone else, what message does that send? That we are a finite resource with limited capacity, Grace replied. That we are not a miracle solution to every problem in the galaxy. Owen leaned back in his chair. You are right. But we need to find some way to help. Even if it is just training others to help themselves. Grace considered that. An interesting thought. Keep developing it. David found Nell teaching Talari children human games in one of the restored schools. She had adapted quickly to her role as a bridge between species. The children loved her, and she seemed to bloom under their attention. They are learning hopscotch, Nell explained as David approached. It is a human game you taught me. They want to know everything about Earth. What it looks like, what you eat, what music sounds like. David watched the children playing. Do you still want to come to Earth? You seem happy here. Nell's expression became serious. I want to see Earth, but I also want to come back here. I want to help my people understand humans better. You are strange to us, powerful and gentle at the same time. We need to learn how that works. Deal, David said. You can be our official ambassador of explaining confusing humans to everyone else. She laughed, a sound that still surprised him with its musical quality. I accept the position. That evening, Leto invited the senior human officers to a traditional Talari gathering. Food was still rationed, but what they had was prepared with care and served with ceremony. It was the first time since the liberation that Talari had felt safe enough to celebrate their own culture. Grace attended in her dress uniform, as did David, Owen, and Rita. They sat on cushions designed for Talari physiology, trying to look comfortable despite the awkward fit. This is called a remembrance feast, Leto explained. We honor those we have lost while celebrating that we continue. It is our way of defying death by choosing life. The ceremony proceeded with music and poetry. Talari artists performed works that spoke of loss and hope, destruction and rebuilding. The humans listened respectfully, understanding that being invited to this meant they had been accepted. When the performances ended, Leto stood to speak. Before the Ravagers came, we believed the galaxy was fundamentally good. We thought peaceful species would be protected by law and common decency. The Ravagers taught us we were wrong. The galaxy is not inherently good or evil. It is what those with power choose to make it. He looked at the humans. You taught us something else. You taught us that power can be used for protection. That strength does not require cruelty. That strangers can become friends if someone is willing to take the first step. Leto raised his cup. The Talari will never forget what humanity did for us. We were dying in the dark and you brought light. We will spend the rest of our existence trying to be worthy of that gift. Grace felt uncomfortable with such praise. We did what anyone should have done. But no one else did, Leto replied gently. Only you. That matters. Later, walking back to their quarters, Rita asked Grace a question that had been bothering her. Do you think we can keep doing this? Rushing to help every species that calls for it? Grace was quiet for a moment. No, but I think we can do something better. We can teach others how to help themselves. Show them that standing up to threats is possible. Build coalitions of species willing to protect each other. And if they do not want to learn, Rita asked, then they will learn the hard way when the next Ravagers show up, Grace said grimly. But at least we will have tried. Owen received a priority transmission from the council. Morath appeared on the screen looking older somehow. Ambassador Harris, the council has completed its review of your actions at Bren. Owen braced himself for condemnation. The council formally recognizes humanity's intervention as legal under emergency provisions. Furthermore, we wish to offer your species a seat on the Security Council, effective immediately. Owen blinked. That is unexpected. Your species demonstrated capabilities and values the council needs, Morath said. We have spent too long debating while others suffer. Perhaps it is time we learned from the Deathworlders. Owen smiled slightly. We appreciate the offer, Chancellor. But we need to discuss it with Earth's government, and we would like to propose something else first. What would you propose? Let us talk about creating a rapid response initiative, a coalition of species dedicated to mutual protection. Not a military alliance exactly, but something that allows peaceful species to defend themselves and each other. Morath considered this an interesting proposal. Present it formally when you return to the council chambers. The transmission ended. Owen looked out at Bren below, seeing lights in cities that had been dark 2 weeks ago. They had won the battle. Now came the harder work of winning the peace. David stood at Nell's bedside that night. She had insisted on sleeping in the Talari dormitories with other children her age, refusing special treatment despite her adoption status. "David?" she asked sleepily. "When we go to Earth, will there be other children like me?"
Adopted ones?
"Many," David confirmed. "Humans adopt all the time. Children from other families, other cultures, even other species now. We believe family is about choice, not just biology." "Good," Nell said, closing her eyes. "I choose you as my family." David felt his throat tighten. "I choose you too." He left her sleeping and found Grace on the command deck staring at casualty reports. "Still thinking about the cost?" he asked. "Always," Grace replied. 3,400 people. I signed the order that sent them here. Their deaths are on me. Their heroism is on you too, David said. They chose to come. They chose to fight. That choice matters. Grace nodded slowly. I know. But command means carrying both the pride and the guilt. I will carry this the rest of my life. Good, David said quietly. The day commanders stop feeling the weight of their decisions is the day we become the Ravagers. Outside, rain continued to fall on the memorial field, washing the markers clean. 6 months had changed the galaxy in ways nobody had anticipated. The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with activity as representatives filed in for what had been billed as a historic session. The human section, once a small corner near the back, had expanded to accommodate additional personnel. Owen stood at the central platform again, but this time 50 representatives from different species stood with him. Leto represented the Talari. Beside him were delegates from the Moran, a species that had successfully repelled pirates using tactics learned from human advisors. The Kelvin sent their defense minister. The Perrin sent their entire military command. High Chancellor Morath called the session to order. Ambassador Harris, you requested this time to present a formal proposal. The Council recognizes you. Owen activated the holographic display. A network of connected systems appeared, showing shipping lanes, communication relays, and defensive positions. Chancellor, distinguished representatives, 6 months ago, humanity intervened at Bren without Council approval. Some called it reckless. Others called it necessary. We call it insufficient, murmurs ran through the chamber. Insufficient because one battle does not solve the larger problem. The Ravagers were symptoms of a disease affecting the galaxy. The disease is simple. Peaceful species have no effective means of defense against aggressive ones. Laws exist on paper, but enforcement is slow or non-existent. He gestured to the species standing with him. These representatives come from worlds that faced similar threats. Pirates, slavers, warlords. Each time the Council debated and delayed while people died. So we took a different approach. Grace appeared on a secondary screen transmitting from Earth. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications, I present the Deathworlder Initiative, a coalition of species dedicated to mutual protection and rapid response to threats against peaceful civilizations. The display changed, showing training facilities on a dozen worlds. Human instructors worked with alien soldiers, teaching tactics and strategy. Mixed species units practiced coordinated operations. Ships from multiple civilizations flew in combined formations. The initiative is not a military alliance in the traditional sense, Owen explained. It is a knowledge-sharing network. Humans teach what we learned through centuries of conflict. Our partners contribute their own expertise, technologies, and perspectives. Together, we create defense forces capable of protecting themselves and helping others. Leto stepped forward. The Talari were helpless when the Ravagers came. Now we have a defense fleet trained by humans and equipped with our own technology adapted for combat. We will never be helpless again, and when the next species calls for help, we will answer alongside humanity. The Moran delegate spoke next. Pirates plagued our shipping lanes for years. The Council promised protection but delivered only paperwork. The humans sent 3 advisors who taught us to protect ourselves. The pirates are gone now, and we learned something valuable. Strength is not about being cruel. It is about being capable. Species after species spoke, sharing similar stories. Humanity's intervention at Bren had inspired a movement. Dozens of civilizations were learning that waiting for someone else to solve their problems was less effective than solving problems themselves. Morath listened with an expression that might have been approval or concern. When the presentations ended, he spoke carefully. This initiative represents a significant shift in galactic power dynamics. The Council must consider the implications. With respect, Chancellor, Owen replied. The Council has been considering implications while people suffer. The initiative exists with or without Council approval. We are simply offering to coordinate with you rather than work around you. That sounds like a threat, Ambassador. It is a fact, Owen corrected. The galaxy is changing. Species who were prey are becoming protectors. The old model where strong species dominate weak ones is ending. You can be part of that change or watch it happen without you. A representative from the Quellan Collective stood. My species has military strength, but we have avoided intervention in conflicts that did not directly affect us. The human approach suggests we should do more. Why? Grace answered from her transmission. Because today's distant crisis is tomorrow's neighboring threat. The Ravagers operated for centuries because everyone assumed someone else would stop them. Evil spreads when good beings do nothing. The initiative says we do something, but at what cost? Another representative challenged. War is expensive. Defense is expensive. Not every species can afford what you propose. Then we make it affordable, Rita said, appearing beside Grace. The initiative shares technology, training, and resources. Wealthier species help poorer ones. More advanced militaries train less experienced ones. We build a network where everyone contributes what they can and benefits from what others provide. David joined the transmission, Nell visible beside him. The young Tilari wore a uniform identifying her as a cultural liaison officer, a position created specifically for her. I command the initiative's first mixed species unit. Humans, Tilari, Moran, and Kelvin soldiers working together. They learn from each other. Combat doctrine, technology, culture. We are stronger together than any of us could be alone. Nell spoke up, her voice clear despite obvious nervousness. I lost my family to the Ravagers. The humans saved me and my people. Now I help train Tilari soldiers so we can save others. My people were artists and philosophers. We are learning to be warriors too. Not because we want to fight, but because we refuse to be helpless again. Morath observed the young Tilari for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. The Council will vote on formal recognition of the Deathworlder initiative. But first I have questions. Ask, Owen invited. Who leads this initiative? Who makes decisions about deployment and intervention? A council of participating species, Owen explained. Each member gets a vote. Decisions require majority approval. We prevent single-species domination while ensuring democratic oversight. What prevents the initiative from becoming another Ravager-type threat? Power corrupts, Ambassador. Even good intentions, Grace answered. Transparency. All initiative operations are public. All members submit to regular reviews. And we maintain a simple rule. We defend, we do not conquer. We protect, we do not dominate. The moment we violate that principle, any member can withdraw their participation. How do you fund such an organization? Voluntary contributions from members based on economic capability, Rita said. Additionally, we accept missions that pay. Convoy protection, anti-piracy operations, security consulting. The initiative supports itself. The questions continued for hours. Technical concerns, political implications, potential abuses. Owen, Grace, David, and Rita answered each one thoroughly. Behind them, the coalition representatives added their own perspectives and experiences. Finally, Morath called for a vote. All species in favor of formally recognizing the Deathworlder initiative as a legitimate galactic organization indicate now. Lights appeared across the chamber as representatives voted. Owen watched the tally climb. They needed a simple majority. They got overwhelming approval. 247 species voted in favor. Only 18 voted against. 35 abstained. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species celebrated. Others expressed concern. But the vote was clear. The initiative was official. Owen felt relief wash over him. They had gambled that their actions would inspire rather than frighten. The gamble had paid off. After the session, he met privately with Morath. The old chancellor looked tired but satisfied. "You have changed the galaxy, Ambassador. I hope your species is ready for the responsibility that brings." "We are not," Owen admitted, "but we will learn." "We always do," Morath nodded slowly. "The Council underestimated humans. We saw your harsh world and assumed it made you harsh. We failed to see that it made you resilient, adaptive, and protective of those who suffer. Many species still fear us," Owen said. "Let them. Fear can be healthy. It reminds beings to think before acting. Your species frightens those who prey on the weak. That is not a bad thing." Owen returned to Earth 3 days later. He had been away for 7 months, first deploying to Bren, then helping establish the initiative. Walking through the streets of his home city felt surreal after so long in space. His family greeted him with relief and pride. His sister hugged him tightly. "You started a war. I started a peace," he corrected. "Or at least the possibility of one." Grace visited the memorial on Earth that honored the fallen from Bren. 3,400 names carved into black stone. She touched several, remembering faces and voices. These people had followed her orders into danger. They had trusted her judgment. That trust had cost them everything.
"Admiral?"
a voice said behind her. She turned to find a young woman in civilian clothes, early 20s, with eyes that matched one of the names on the memorial. "I am Sarah. My brother was Lieutenant Ryan Hughes. He died in the fighter assault on the Ravager command carriers." Grace felt her throat tighten. "I'm sorry for your loss. Your brother was an exceptional pilot. He saved countless lives with his actions." Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes. "I wanted you to know that I do not blame you." Ryan knew what he was doing. He believed in the mission. He told me before he left that some things are worth dying for. I think he found one of those things. Grace had no words. She simply stood with Sarah in silence. Two people sharing grief for someone who had chosen to be a hero. David brought Nell to Earth as promised. She stepped off the transport into a world that terrified and amazed her. Earth's gravity was higher than Bren's. The air felt thicker. And everywhere she looked, life existed in aggressive abundance. "Your world is so full," she whispered, watching birds fight over food scraps in a park. "Everything competes for everything." "Yes," David agreed. "That is what made us what we are. We learned to compete, to fight, to survive. But we also learned to cooperate, to protect, to build communities. Both lessons were necessary." Nell spent weeks exploring Earth. David showed her oceans where predators hunted in darkness, mountains where avalanches could bury cities, forests where every plant and animal fought for survival. She began to understand why humans were so different from Talari. Bren had been gentle. Earth had been merciless. "How do you not become cruel?" she asked one evening. "With so much violence in your past, how did you learn kindness?" David considered the question carefully. "Because we saw what cruelty cost us. Earth's history is full of wars, genocides, atrocities. We nearly destroyed ourselves many times. Eventually, we learned that survival required cooperation, that our strength had to serve our compassion, not replace it." Nell nodded slowly. "I want to teach other Talari this. Not just the fighting, but the philosophy behind it. Understanding why humans fight the way they do." "Then that will be your role," David said. "Teacher, bridge builder, someone who explains the incomprehensible." Rita compiled a comprehensive report on the initiative's first 6 months. 53 species had joined. 12 pirate groups had been eliminated. 3 slavery operations had been dismantled. 7 territorial disputes had been resolved through mediation backed by credible force. 0 member species had been conquered or dominated by others. 0 instances of initiative forces being used for aggression rather than defense. The model was working. She presented her findings to Earth's government. They asked the question everyone asked eventually. What happens when we face something we cannot defeat? When the enemy is too strong or too numerous? Rita's answer was simple. We call for help. The initiative is not just humans anymore. When we need support, 53 species will answer, just as we answer when they need us. The government approved expanded support for the initiative. More resources, more personnel, more technology. Earth understood that their role in the galaxy had fundamentally changed. They were no longer the newcomers seeking acceptance. They were leaders building something new. 1 year after the liberation of Bren, a massive celebration was held in the restored capital city. Humans, Talari, and representatives from dozens of species gathered to commemorate the anniversary. Owen stood with Leto watching the festivities. Your people have rebuilt beautifully. Your people gave us the chance to rebuild, Leto replied. Without that, we would be extinct or enslaved. Everything we have now exists because you chose to help strangers. And now you help strangers too, Owen observed, watching Talari soldiers in initiative uniforms mingling with human counterparts. The cycle continues, Leto smiled. Yes, we were saved by Deathworlders. Now we stand with Deathworlders, not because we come from harsh worlds, but because we choose to protect those who need protection. Grace addressed the crowd at sunset. Behind her, the monument to human Talari friendship stood tall. A human marine holding a Talari child immortalized in stone. 1 year ago, we came to this world expecting a fight. We found a fight, yes, but we also found something more important. We found partners, friends, a species that reminded us why we fought in the first place. She gestured to the mixed crowd. Look around you.
Humans and Talari working together.
Training together. Building together. This is the future we are creating. Not humans dominating the galaxy, but humans working with the galaxy. Not strength used for conquest, but strength used for protection. Her voice hardened slightly. The Ravagers are broken, but others like them still exist. Species and factions that prey on the weak. To them I have a simple message. The galaxy has changed. Peaceful species are no longer defenseless. When you attack them, you attack us all. And we will respond. She softened again. To everyone else, to the peaceful species building civilizations and creating beauty, we offer our hand. Join us, learn with us, stand with us. Together we can build a galaxy where fear is replaced with hope. The crowd erupted in approval. Humans and Talari cheered side by side. Representatives from 53 species applauded the vision being offered. That night, David found Owen on a balcony overlooking the city. Light stretched to the horizon, a testament to Talari resilience and human help. Do you think we can maintain this? David asked. Keep being the heroes the galaxy needs? Owen was quiet for a moment. I think we can try, and I think that is enough. We do not need to be perfect. We just need to care enough to act when action is needed. Nell asked me today if humans ever get tired of fighting. What did you tell her? That we get tired every day, but we do it anyway because the alternative is worse. Owen nodded. That is the truth of it. We are tired. We are scared. We are uncertain, but we choose to stand anyway. That is what makes us Deathworlders. Not that we do not fear death, but that we refuse to let fear stop us from doing what is right. Across the galaxy, the message was spreading. When darkness threatened, the Deathworlders would come. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to protect, to defend, to stand between evil and innocence, and standing beside them, a growing coalition of species who had learned the same lesson. That strength without compassion is cruelty, but compassion without strength is merely good intentions. Together they were building something new. A galaxy where the weak were not prey, where the strong protected rather than dominated, where calling for help meant help would actually come. The age of Deathworlders had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.